This episode sponsored by Lake Monster Details, producing the Don's Light and Magic Legacy line of parts, offering upgrade parts and decals for accuracy, special effects, and lighting. Visit www.lakemonsterdetails.com and make it glow. Also sponsored by GCals, producing aftermarket replacement decals and custom quality graphics for your favorite spaceships. Visit www.gcals.company.site and add some personalization to your sci-fi models today. Also sponsored by Mask Design, boldly going where no masking kit has gone before. Take your model to the next level of detail and accuracy with a masking kit from Mask Design. Visit Mask Design on Facebook or click the ordering link in the notes below the video.
Dispatch War Rocket Ajax to bring me back his body.
What's up, fellow modelers? Will here. Welcome to the Engine Share. So, been a bit again. My focus has been more on trying to get this model done. I've got, as of today, I've got 29 days to Wonderfest, and I've taken a couple days off actually this week to get some things done on this to get it caught up. My goal was to have this ready to start painting the first of the month. Today's the second. And we're going to take a look at it. I'm a day behind, but I'm pretty much on target. So far, I'm still looking good for getting this done in time. But we got some things to look at. Some work that I'm doing on the model. I've had some issues with it, and it's just, sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back on these models, and that's the way it's been the past 2 weeks. But I'm getting it there. I think we'll be good. And also we're going to take a look at the display base that I've worked up, that I am working on finishing and getting ready to mount the model on. So without any further ado, give me a minute. I'll put you on the bench. We'll get to work. All right, so here's where I'm at with the War Rocket. I've got this is actually the second gloss coat on here. I put the first one on, came over it with about a 400 grits piece of sandpaper to smooth it out, and then I came over with another gloss black coat, and then came back over it with I think it was either a 600 or 700 grit, and then I'm going to come over this probably one more time with 1,000 grit, and then put one more final gloss black coat over this, and it should be ready for final paint. And you can kind of see what that base color is going to look like. I did have to go back, I forgot to mention in the previous episode, I did have to go back and redo this because I messed up the windows. I got some glue on it, and I had to redo them. When I went to pull it apart, it just messed it all up. So I had to go back and redo this part, and I've got to put the windows back in it as well as the lighting yet, and repaint this top. So I did have to take a step back on that. I forgot to mention that before, but that's where I'm at with this. I've got the top pretty far along. The bottom is a whole nother story. I still got a lot of work to do here. You can see I had to retrench this to fix that first light on this side, because what happened was, I'd mentioned before about when I lost two of the lights on this side, this same side. I tried to fish them out with a hook, and the hook ended up pulling the wires, or actually it wasn't these, it was one of the cannons. The wire had pulled all the way out, and I had to go in and tried to fish that wire through with a hook, and I ended up pulling out the leads for the 2 lights on this side, so I had to go in trench and replace those 2 lights. Well, I had the same thing happen. Actually what happened was I had the cannons glued in place, and I broke one. And because the wires had glued to the inside of the wing, the wires also broke. So there was no way to fix that other than to rerun the wires. And again, I tried to hook it, hoping that maybe this time I would have better luck. No, I didn't. I pulled the wire lead out for this first LED because that's one of the ones I had to replace. So it still ran through the original trench. And ended up pulling that wire out, so now I had to go in and replace that one. So you can see I've got my my mess of putty here, filling that back in. I've got to let that dry. That's going to take a while to dry because it is kind of thick where the trench was. But I'll let that dry out to kind of fix that problem for everybody else. As far as it goes back to the issue with these cannons, you got to kind of glue them in. There's really no alternative. But what I did was I went in and edited the cannons now. And I'd already mentioned I made the openings bigger to fit an SMD in. But now what I've done is you can see on the back end here, if I get somewhere, let's see if I can focus this any better. If this actually, the autofocus, there we go. You can see that back end there where I added a bit now, this part here. I've added a shaft on the back there. So now this actually will insert into that opening on the wing. So you can use minimal amount of glue now to hold this in. It's just got to hold it in. You don't have to glue it in solid like these. You pretty much have to glue them in and hope the glue holds. But this has turned out, this one here I actually replaced with one of these. And it's a lot more, there's a lot more strength to it than just gluing these other ones on, which I don't really want to have to go through the trouble of pulling these out and then running wires again and going through that mess. So hopefully I can make these work, but if I do have an issue with these breaking the wires and I got to go through all that again, I'll go ahead and replace them with one of these, because these just kind of slide in and it gives a bit more durability to it rather than depending on just the glue. Plus it also helps a great deal with the alignment on these, getting these lined up right, because once you push these in, they pretty much are lined up. But I build one of these again. At least I've got that worked out, but I've got it worked out for everybody else when you go to build this. So now that'll be included in the upgraded files as well. That'll be free. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I am kind of working on the fin. I've got the fin that I've got the base coat of paint on, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But I want to look at the base. I'm going to do a separate video on the base because that's going to be a whole different thing. And the base will be available, but that one's going to be a purchase download because I put a lot of work into that base, and I kind of want to get something out of it if everybody's going to use it, versus all of this work I've been putting into these enhancements on this are going to be free. But the base is a whole different idea. So I do want to talk about the base a little bit, so let me put you on the computer screen and show you a couple things real quick. All right, guys, so here's what you see Flash and Voltan messing with. As far as the control console, I don't know how this controls the War Rocket, but it does somehow. But you actually see Voltan come in here, and he looks like he turns this knob, but I don't think these knobs actually turn, because if you watch the movie, this square never changes positions when he turns it. So I'm pretty sure these were all just push buttons. And the thing is, you gotta notice, and a lot of people may not have noticed, is that this is actually different from what we see. Let's see, where did I put? I've got another picture here. When you see them in the War Rocket, you'll notice that the control console is actually different. It's just got 2 rows of looks like square buttons. These could be round, it's hard to tell, but they look like they might just be square buttons. And then this display piece here is obviously different because it's a gray shroud around it, whereas when you look at the one in front of Flash, this is not a gray shroud, and it also appears to be larger, although you're looking at this from a different angle. But this definitely has more buttons than that original console shows. So it looks like when they did close-ups, they switched to this. And so I had to make a decision here, and I decided, well, this one doesn't have a whole lot to it. So I'm actually making the control console after this one. And this is actually what I came up with. And I think it looks pretty close to what the display looks like in the movie, the close-up, for the close-up shots anyway. I may have to reduce these. I think these may sit a little high. But other than that, it looks pretty good in mock-up. I'm going to print this up in one piece on my large format M3 Max. And I can print this easily on that. This will fit on that. But you may have to split this for smaller printers when you if you want to do this. So I'm gonna work on this a little bit, and we'll come back and take a look at this, and then we'll take a look at a couple other things too. So give me a minute, and we'll come back. All right, so here we are. I've got pretty much got this gloss coated with black and ready to go. I got this bottom part sealed up as well. I may have to do a little more sanding down here, but I'm gonna start working on the top side, so even if I got to do a little bit more to the bottom here, I can. I've got pretty much smoothed out. There's a couple of areas, but once I get done, I put that base coat on and I start coming in. I've got to do some panel lines, and that's going to kind of help this blend even more wherever there's some minor issues. So it's looking good. I wanted to have this ready to start painting by the 1st. Today is the 2nd, so I'm not too far off. The thing that held me up was fixing these lights on the wing. The bad news is, well, the good news is first that these are working great. You see that side. The bad news is I lost the light again on this side. At this point, I can't. I would have to cut this back open because this is all sealed up now. I'd have to trench again, and it's just I don't have time to do it. But if I want to have this ready for Wonderfest, I've got to move forward with it, and it's just it sucks. But I'm just going to have to live with that one light missing on this side, and it really stinks. But I just don't have time right now. Maybe after Wonderfest is done and I get it home, I hate to do it then, but maybe then I'll tear it back open and fix that. But right now I just don't have time if I want to get this done in time for Wonderfest. I'm already behind schedule on it. So the next step is going to be to start working on this top part and start working on this top dome section first and getting that ready. So starting from the top down, I already did the back fin. If you haven't seen pictures of it, here's how that turned out. I'm really impressed with myself. I hadn't done any of these panel line accents before on a model, and this is kind of getting brushed up, I guess, for my Battleship Yamato I got to build yet, which is going to need some of this done to it. But you can see I added those panel line accents in here, and basically, if you're not aware of how this is done, basically you just take a piece of Scotch tape, a piece of painter's tape, or any type of masking tape, and you mask off where you want that panel line to be, and then you come in with your airbrush and set it to a really low pressure setting. I think I had mine around 10 psi, and that's about as low as I can get it without it taking the chance of it spattering instead of actually spraying a nice even line. And I just come in and start at the back edge of the tape and just kind of move forward till I start seeing that line appear the way I want to along that one edge. And then I stop, unmask it, and that's pretty much what you get, and you do it for each line. You come in and mask it. You don't want to mask all these at the same time, because if you put a piece of masking tape here and you go to do this, you're going to see a line here on the back edge of that masking tape. So you want to do it a step at a time. And just come in, mask, paint your panel line, unmask it, let it dry a little bit, come in here, mask this off, and so on and so forth until you get your panel lines in. And that's especially how I did this. I basically started from the front and worked my way backward. That way, this one I didn't have to worry about. Actually, I'm sorry, I started back here and then worked my way up, because you can see that the shade kind of moves backwards. And that's the way I want it to look, because obviously this being a ship moving forward, I want it to look like there's some weathering going on as it's moving. So that's how I did that. I got the panel lines in there, and then you'll see I've got, oh, if it'll fit. You can see well, if it'll focus. I'm trying this autofocus again, but it doesn't like to cooperate. You see there, it's not really. But you can see the rivets I did in here. And what I found out was the, if you see in my other previous videos, I've always said that a set of TOS masking decals is the gift that keeps on giving. Because basically what I did was I took these smaller windows for the TOS Enterprise and I cut that into a row of 2. You can see where I cut it out here. And basically that worked out perfect for doing the rivets on this. And I like the way that turned out. So I've got some rivets on there now. And I've done that to both sides. So you see how that's turned out nice. And then for these sections here, which are really, I think, supposed to be ladders, but they're just kind of ribbed pieces. Basically, I took those and just painted them black, gloss black, and then sprayed at an angle on these. Obviously, before I put them on here. Sprayed at an angle on these with a pale. Oh, what is it? I forget what the paint's called. It's an all-clad paint, but it's a pale something. I'll have to figure out the name later. But it's basically like a silverish with a tint of gold to it when you look at it in the paint bottle. And I painted that on, let that dry, clear coated it, and that's the look I got. And I'm real happy with the way that turned out. I kind of wish I had put this ladder back more like I did on this side and covered that set of rivets. I just don't like the way that panel line kind of goes in, and then you've got the ladder sitting right there. So I wish I'd done that different, but it's all in there now, so I can't change that. But I like the way this side turned out better with that. And the emblem on here, the Mongo emblem, Gus over at GCals did that up for me. Thank you, Gus. So if you do this model, you need a set of Mongo decals. Make sure you hit Gus up, and let me show you what he sends. He actually sent me a couple sheets, and he sent me a redder. It's kind of a darker redder version, and one that's kind of, I guess, slightly washed out. I don't know what he did, but I liked the lighter toned one versus the darker toned one. You can see there's a slight difference there between them in the shade. So I ended up going with the kind of washed out looking, slightly washed out looking version. I think that looked better. So he sent me all those, and then he sent me this sheet here with this. I think these are 5mm, maybe smaller than that, 3mm. But these I'll use for inside on the back here. These doors on the back section here of the bridge, those will work perfectly for that. So those are going to fit for that. But thank you, Gus, for doing that, sending these over to me. They turned out perfect. I didn't even have to use any microsol on these decals before, because the film is so thin. All I did was cut it out as close as I could get to the design itself, and you can see there's no edge on that. No edge at all on that. Let's see if I can get it up here and get it to focus right. I hate autofocus. I guess I'm going to take the autofocus back off. But anyway, you can see that turned out perfect. I did a clear coat on it, and it's seamless. So again, Gus, awesome work as always. So thank you for doing that. And so I've got this ready, and I want to show you one other thing, but I've got to set this aside. So give me a second. I got to unplug this, and I'm trying to keep this on something soft so that I don't scratch the paint. All right, get that set. So the other thing I'm working on is the display base, and showed images of this, but this is my printed up version. This is how it printed up, and it turned out great. I've got some print lines I've got to finish sanding out, and I don't know what I got on there just now, but that's all right. I got a nice print line on this side. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera. I don't know why this doesn't seem to be. I've got an overhead light. It doesn't seem to light up very well. But I've got to get this all sanded nice and smooth, and then I can start painting this. And what I've got worked up is I've got some buttons worked up for this, and where are they at? Oh, here they are. So basically these buttons, that I've made with the patterns, as you see in the movie. These basically just go in from underneath, and these will be workable buttons. So all these buttons will actually work. You can press them, and what I've got set up is I've got this piece here, and you'll see this more. I'm going to do a video just on building the display because I'm going to have these files for sale, probably on Colts and CG Trader. I'll probably have these up, but I've got this set up so that this piece here, you've got a switch that basically just screws into it, and this will sit on the bottom and get glued to the bottom of this, so that when I press this button, it presses the button underneath and activates whatever you want it to do, whether if you got it hooked up to effect. I'm only going to have this hooked up to a soundboard that's going to do different sounds that I'm picking from the movie and different clips. So yes, it will have the Hawkman dive, and it will have the dispatch War Rocket Ajax, and all that will be on there. You can press a button and hear the audio for that part. But that's going to work out great. So I've got the square buttons. I've got these round buttons are worked out. And I've also got these smaller buttons worked out as well. But these on mine, these smaller buttons won't be used for anything. They'll just be there for look. But they'll be on there. So I'll have those all set up. I've also got some bulbs, which I've got to paint and do some light blocking on to get the proper effect out of them. But I've got those set up too. There's 3 down here, and then there's 3 on each side up the top here. And then for the display, now I talked about there were 2 different versions of this. There was the one that was actually in the cockpit for the fully built stage set, and that one's different from the close-ups. This is the one that was done on, that the close-ups was done on. Well, the one for the close-ups had a counter on it, and it counted down. And I'm not doing that on this. Instead, I'm going to take a little creative license, and I am going to actually use the image that you see at the beginning of the movie where it's got the targeting of planet Earth on it. I'm going to put that in here at backlit, and that's what I'm going to use for this section here. I've got a frame that inserts in here that I've got to print yet. And there's also a rod which will insert into here to mount the ship on. And I'm working on finalizing that right now. So that's going to, I think it's going to work out great. It's a great size. You can print it larger if you want to just do, because with these files, you can either print it as a display stand, or you can print it as just a standalone prop if you want. And I think the files at 100% would probably be closer to the size. This is done at 80% of the actual file size, the full size file size. So I printed this at 80%. The 100% files are actually a bit bigger and probably more in line with the full scale stage replica, if you will. So I'll have those files up once I get everything finalized on these, and I'm happy with the way everything fits together. I've still got a couple little things that I'm finessing, but this is what I'm working on, and I'm going to start working on painting the details on that war rocket, and we'll come back and take a look next episode. This is going to be a short episode because it's just a couple things to go over, some things to catch up on, and I got quite a bit more work to do, and I'm trying to focus more on getting the work done than making videos right now, because I've got 29 days to Wonderfest, so I've got a lot of work to get done between now and then. Fortunately, I'm off the next 2 or 3 days, and that'll give me a little more. I took off a couple excuse me, took off a couple extra days so I could catch up on this and get this ready to go. But it's turning out great. I'm right about where I want to be. Like I said, I've had a little issue with those lights on the wing. I don't know why that one wing keeps giving me an issue and the other wing has been perfectly fine. But I may have to do some revisions to that to make it a little bit easier to work on in the future, instead of having to Dremel out and gouge out underneath of it to get to it every time. I'm going to have to see if I can come up with some way to make that to where you can actually get in there and replace those lights if necessary, instead of going through all the trouble that I'm having to go through. So, but anyway, I appreciate everybody watching these videos as always. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Costs you nothing and affects you in no way, but it helps me out tremendously, and helps build my base, and helps out with my sponsors. So please hit that subscribe button. Now, if you want to get notifications on these build videos, then hit that bell icon and you'll get the notifications every time I put out an update on this or any future builds. But as always, a shout out to my sponsors, Gus over at G-Cows. Thank you for those decals, Gus. I appreciate it. Cass over at Lake Monster Details, whose parts I'm using for that refit, or excuse me, the Enterprise A, which I got to get back into after Wonderfest. I'll get back into that build. And Gary over at Mask Design, who is, by the way, coming out with a movie accurate Aztecing masking set for the Reliant, the 537 Reliant, whatever. It's been advertised as some weird scales over the time, but I think it's supposed to be 1537. But so keep an eye on that. The links for everybody always in the notes below this video, so please check them out. And I look forward to seeing people at Wonderfest here in another 4 weeks. But I'll have a couple more updates before then, get this finalized and done right before Wonderfest. So again, thank you everybody for watching. Till next time, keep modeling.